our next presenter, which is Mr. Mark Johnson. He's a Senior Principal Consultant for North America for Arcserve. Are you there, Mark?
I am. Thank you, David.
Awesome. Take it away.
Thank you very much. And thanks, everyone, for attending. I saw that we had over 300 people on, at least, so thank you very much. Let's talk about, I'm just going to throw up one slide here quick about Arcserve. I'm sure a lot of people have heard the name. The Arcserve brand has been around 15 years that I know of, at least, maybe close to 20. A lot of people think of us in terms of the old Arcserve backup product, but recently, within the last 2.5 years, we've announced and grown our newest product, Arcserve Unified Data Protection, right? It's an award-winning product. We've won Best of Show and Best Solution as far as backing up virtualized environments as recently as last year's VMware World, not only in the U.S. but in Europe as well. So if you look at what we're trying to do today, we've taken the technology from Arcserve in the past, updated it. It's actually brand new code, and now we're going to market looking to help our customers not only reduce risk and reduce complexity, but improve capability by bringing enterprise-type capabilities to our customers. So if you look at data protection today, we're trying to make it simple. We do make it simple as far as a management perspective, but it's complex, right? There's a lot of issues that go on in a customer's environment and things that need to be done. So if you look at what we're doing today, we have the ability to, back up virtual, physical, and application servers, obviously, to our recovery point server. And when we do that, we do it. It's image-based, snapshot-type technology. We're using our award-winning de-duplication technology, right? And we still have the ability there to go to tape. Some of our customers still have that requirement, and we can absolutely do that today. Let's take that a step further, where our customers say, we want to replicate to a remote or a branch office. In other words, we want to create our own DR site. We have the ability to do that. And if you look at this, there's an icon there for the Arcserve appliance. So keep in mind that we do offer our solution not only in a software-based platform, but a hardware-based platform as well. And when you talk about our replication, and there's a little note there that says WAN optimized, because we're replicating only deduplicated incremental block-level data between our RPS servers, between our recovery point servers, we really have the ability to reduce the amount of bandwidth that we're using. And on top of that, we can also schedule that replication. So we can do it in off hours or a time that makes sense for what the customer is looking to do, right? We're not going to hog all their bandwidth. They can save that for production. So in the case of customers who might have limited bandwidth between sites, we can obviously cater to that. Let's take that a step farther and say, maybe they have a colo, maybe they're using an MSP. We have the ability to replicate data out there as well. And if you look at the way we replicate, we can do multi-point replication. We can do a many-to-one or a one-to-many. So if a customer says, I have a DR site, for example, but I have 3 or 4 different locations that I want to replicate to that, we can certainly do that. That's not an issue. And if you look down the lower right-hand corner there, we do all that. We can manage the entire scenario from a centralized management console, right? A single management console that allows us to not only manage the backup and recovery and DR, but also the replication. Take that one step further and let's talk about what we do in the cloud, and we'll get into that in a little bit more detail in a few more slides. But not only do we have our own Arcserve branded cloud, but we have the ability to work with those public cloud vendors out there, the Amazons, Microsoft, Eucalyptus, Fujitsu, Cloudian, and many of the things that we can do replicating between our own recovery point servers, we can do in the cloud as well. And we'll get into that in a little bit more detail in a few slides. So keep in mind when I've talked about this replication before, this is all built into the core product, and there's absolutely no charge for that on top of the core product. So we have the ability to do multi-point replication between our recovery point servers, many-to-one or one-to-many which gives us the ability to do that optimized replication, right? Minimal bandwidth utilization. And like I said before, we can manage this all through a central console. The console is web-based, browser-based. It allows our customers to manage their entire environment, whether it be cloud, DR site, multiple company sites, all from one interface, whether it be a software-based or an appliance. And of course, we can do things like agentless backup of VMware and Hyper-V as part of our solution, right? We have the ability to do those low-impact type of backups from your hosts out there. We don't need to load an agent on those VMs. We can back those up. Not an issue today. Let's take DR or business continuity and take that a step further and talk about virtual standby. Right, so we have the ability to create virtual standby copies of VMs out there and update them periodically, and actually create an automated failover scenario or manual, either way, whatever the customer wants to do. The ability to update that VM and power it up on a host so that the customer has access to those workloads. Take that one step further, and we can do instant VM or instant BMR recovery. So I like to call this an ad hoc type of solution, right? We can grab any recovery point or backup set that we've created at any time, and on the fly, convert that to either a Hyper-V VM or a VMware VM and stand it up in a host. From that point, it can either be accessed from an availability perspective, or we can actually use that to do an instant BMR out to hardware. So if a customer has physical machines, they can certainly do a BMR to even unlike hardware to bring that physical box back up. We can also take that recovery point that was created from that physical machine and create a VM and stand that up in a host so that they can access that workload until the hardware is recovered, because sometimes it takes a while to recover that hardware. And we do this all with our award-winning de-duplication technology. So we like to talk about it. We think it's a differentiator to the degree that we do it too. We really do have the ability to impact the amount of storage our customers are using on the back end to protect their production environment. So if you look at this, this is an actual screenshot. I have a number of these that customers have sent me, an actual screenshot from their UDP console showing different recovery sets out there and the deduplication rates and overall reduction rates that they're getting on those backup sets. And if you look, they average the low side in the 50% reduction range all the way up to 92%. So we found that especially in highly virtualized environments where customers have many, many VMs that are of similar OS, for example, or running similar applications, maybe SQL Server or whatever, we have the ability to greatly reduce the amount of disk space that they're going to need to protect that data. So now we've kind of talked about the product. Let's talk about how we work with the cloud as a product, as a company. So obviously we can do file copy and file archive to the cloud, right? Whether it be, if you look there, we can do it to the big guys, Amazon, Microsoft, Eucalyptus, Fujitsu, and that's simply, file backup, file copy to the cloud. We have the ability to do some compression, versioning, encryption, for example. And we can do archive, which means we're going to copy the data, we're going to certify that the copy's been made, that it's good, and then we're going to obviously remove the source data. So it's actually moving the data from on-prem up to the cloud for archive purposes. When we talk about the capabilities we have with some of those larger public cloud providers out there, let's talk about Amazon. So we can run our RPS server because we have both a hardware and software platform. We can take our software, load it on an RPS instance, or create an RPS instance up in Amazon and run a production RPS server out there. And at that point, once we've created that RPS, now we can do that optimized replication between an on-site RPS, whether that be an appliance or software-based, up to an Amazon instance, right? So now we're doing the block level, deduplicated, compressed data across the wire. Where obviously we're optimizing the customer's bandwidth at that point, right? So we can back up, we can create our backup sets on site, on-prem, and then replicate those up to Amazon and be able to recover from those from the cloud. And keep in mind, even though it's the Amazon cloud, we can manage that recovery point server just as we would any other recovery point server from our centralized console. And when we talk about Azure, we can do those same things with Azure. So we can create our RPS in the cloud, we can replicate to that RPS, and now we have the ability to restore from the cloud. So we are going to be announcing some more capabilities within Azure and Amazon, so stay tuned in the next few months. We'll be seeing some added capabilities up in their cloud structure as well. So if we take backup recovery to the next step and really talk about true DR and being able to maybe recover or, in fact, not have a disaster in the first place, let's talk about availability and high availability. We can do asynchronous block-level real-time replication to an instance up in the cloud, whether it be in Amazon or whether it be in Microsoft. So our customers have the ability to do failover from an on-prem solution to an instance in the cloud, right? And we can make that failover instantaneous, automatic. We can allow for the redirection of the traffic. So from a user perspective, it's very transparent. And again, we can manage this entire replication, failover, and availability scenario from our centralized management console. Okay, this is support for Windows-based servers and applications, and we have the ability to fail over not only on a complete system down or system failure, but we have the ability to fail over based on application availability or application health or any service basically that's running on that system. We can use as a queue to fail over. So it's very flexible, very configurable how we actually fail that over to that cloud instance. And then that we have the ability to do that, we also have the ability to test that. So, testing disaster recovery and testing your availability solution is something that doesn't get done nearly as frequently as it needs to be out there. When I talk to my customers, it's kind of an issue, right? So we have the ability to run this failover, this replication failover in a simulated mode. So if our customers actually want to test the ability to fail over and access these workloads up in the cloud, they can actually do that without impacting the production environment. So it gives them a little bit more security. They can sleep a little better at night knowing that, hey, if we have to fail over to the cloud, that we have that ability there and it's actually working for us today. So on top of being able to work with those public cloud providers, we have the ability to work with our own cloud, obviously, the Arcserve Cloud. It's our branded cloud. So if you think about what we can do to those public cloud providers, obviously we have some more functionality built into the Arcserve Cloud, very, very specific to our technology. So let's talk about taking the next step, what we can do. So if we look at the Arcserve Cloud, it's basically a virtual appliance in the cloud, right? So everything that we can do on site or on-prem, all the replication scenarios that we've talked about so far, the ability to create these recovery points, stand them up as VMs, all these things that we can do in the Arcserve Cloud. So besides having that virtual appliance in the cloud, we also have a virtual host. So when you think about it from an application availability perspective, once those recovery points have been created up in the cloud and we have the ability to spin those up as VMs, we've created a true DR availability scenario for our customers. They can actually run those production workloads in the cloud in the event of a true disaster, right? A data center down or data center offline or whatever. Now that they have those recovery points up there, they can run production workloads up there and be able to access them through a secure VPN gateway, okay? When we talk about being able to run those up there, a lot of people say, well, you have a virtual host. What can we do? What are our capabilities up in the cloud today? So if you talk about true compute, I don't know if you can see this slide very well, but we have this ability. The cloud can be for our software customers, where they can basically buy a la carte how much compute power they want. But if a customer buys one of our appliances, we actually include configured compute power and the ability to run these VMs in the cloud right along with the appliance. And if you look at some of our appliances here, especially the V model appliances, we basically include 12 weeks of compute power up in the cloud. So, and we're not charging for, or there's no additional cost for moving the data up and down. There's no additional cost for how many VMs they want to run. So basically we give them, for example, either 6 weeks compute power at 4 cores and roughly 2 terabytes, all the way up to we have the ability to give them the compute power of 20 cores and 192 gig of RAM, right? So, and it's as many VMs as they want to run in the cloud based on that hardware configuration, that compute power up there. So it really truly does give our customers the ability to have a DR scenario in place, right? And because they have the ability to stand these up in the cloud and run them, they also have the ability to test them. So take that discussion from a few minutes ago about testing your DR scenario or testing your restore capabilities. Now you can actually do that. You can stand these up in the cloud without impacting your production environment and access them and make sure that your DR scenario is really a scenario that's going to work for you. And lastly, how do we get that data up there? A lot of times that's a pain for our customers, right? If they have multiple terabytes of data that they want to get into the cloud, but maybe they don't have massive bandwidth, how are we going to get that up there? So we have a solution called Jumpstart, where we can export data from the on-prem recovery point server to a removable device, depending on the size. It could be a removable hard drive. It could be a NAS, right? We're going to accommodate whatever data volume the customer has. We can replicate the database out, the database and the metadata, ship that device to the cloud, plug it in, and restore that data locally to their cloud instance. And at that point, the synchronization takes place. The data is synced up between the two instances, and at that point, they can just start doing their incremental dedupe block level replication on a daily basis, depending on whatever schedule they want to use. And keep in mind that our replication to the cloud is not an all or nothing scenario. Customers have the ability to replicate to the cloud based on server type, whatever they want to use for a criteria. They can replicate their data up to the cloud. And keep in mind that we can do this Jumpstart with other public cloud providers who offer data import services. We can certainly accommodate that. And in the case of a real true DR scenario where a customer has to get massive amounts of data back, obviously they can access those as VM workloads up there using the virtual host, but at the same time, we have the ability with the Arcserve Cloud to do what we call a reverse Jumpstart, where we can export that data to a portable device and ship that overnight to the customer to give them the fastest possible way to restore terabytes of data. Okay, so that is all I have, and I think I kind of nailed it on my about 20 minutes here. So I'm going to turn this over to David, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, excellent presentation, Mark. Thanks so much. We do have a lot of questions. Yeah, we do have a lot of questions here from the audience for you. So if you don't mind, let's go ahead and kick those off. And I hope the audience will stay tuned here because we still have some great grand prizes, some iMacs, and gift cards to give away. So, first one here is about virtual machines.
Okay.
When it comes to deploying virtual machines in the Arcserve Cloud for DR or for availability, is there a limitation to it, and how is that kind of scaled?
The way I showed the compute power that we showed there, right? So we give them a set amount of compute power based on what they're licensed for, or what they can actually add compute power if they want, and as many VMs as they can stand up under that hardware configuration up in our virtual host, they can stand up. So if they can put up 20 VMs using that compute power up there, they can certainly do that, right? So it's going to depend on what their workloads look like and how big those VMs are, but we don't put any limit as to X number of VMs that you can have running in the cloud at any given time.
Got it. And then there's a person here who's asking, they say in their scenario, their data effectively refreshes every month. They have a brand new data set. I'm not sure which application works that way, but they say they don't have a delta. It's just everything changes at once. How would that work with cloud-based replication, or would it work?
It could work. I mean, I guess it depends on the amount of data and what their bandwidth is. But if they have a large amount of data that is refreshing once a month, which creates a huge chunk that they want to replicate to the cloud, they could certainly do a Jumpstart more than once. They could do a Jumpstart once a month if they wanted to, right? If it was enough data to justify that, they could certainly do that. There's no limit as to how many times you can do that.
Got it. Okay. Someone here is asking about data transfer costs. Are there additional costs associated with transferring data to the Arcserve Cloud?
No, there's no additional cost at all. We don't charge for any up and down. So the only thing that we're charging for in the cloud is the amount of capacity that they're using up there, right? That's what we're charging for. And any additional compute power that they want to purchase beyond, for example, some of those appliances include 12 weeks. If the customer wanted to purchase more than 12 weeks of compute power, they could certainly do that. But we don't charge any up and down fees for moving data back and forth.
Got it. And then what about multi-site replication? Is that included in UDP?
Right. All the replication is included in the base product. So there's no additional charge for the customer to be able to replicate between RPS servers, whether they be hardware or software or appliance. So there's no additional charge for that.
Okay. And another question here from the audience. They're asking, in the event of a disaster, if I'm using Arcserve, will it help me to get my site back up? And how will it resolve the IP configuration on the clients? Our clients connect to us, and we connect to them through IP and secure encryption protocols. So the networking, basically, how is the networking resolved when you bring up virtual machines in the cloud?
In the cloud? So we have a fully configurable VPN gateway. So the customer can configure it however they want. They can configure whatever IP addresses they want and redirect their traffic through there up to those workloads in the cloud. So it's fully configurable on the customer side.
Got it. So they just configure it through a GUI.
Right, through a GUI, exactly.
Very nice. Let's see. Another question here is about network bandwidth issues. When replicating between sites, is there any sort of throttling that they can do of that traffic so it doesn't slow down maybe production traffic?
Right. So we can throttle based on whatever they want to use, right? So we can take a percentage. We can actually say this is how much of that bandwidth we want to use. And we can schedule it too, right? So if a customer wants to schedule their replication to take place, in the middle of the night, maybe to alleviate any kind of impact to their production environment, they can do that. So between the ability to throttle that bandwidth utilization and scheduling, most of our customers can find a a good configuration that works for them without taking extra bandwidth, let's say.
Got it. Okay, I think that's all the time we have for questions right now. If you wouldn't mind checking out some of the questions there in the Q&A box from the audience, I appreciate it. And thanks so much again for being on the MegaCast today.
Thanks, David. I appreciate it.